He told the room I was being repositioned for operational efficiency. I'd been buying stock in this company for 27 years. I owned 54% of it. He had no idea. My name is Gerald Lawson. Jerry, 57 years old. I've been at Harwell Precision Alloys since I was 30, walked in the door with a state school engineering degree. No MBA, no connections, just the kind of stubbornness that comes from growing up in a household where you either figured things out yourself or they didn't get figured out. That Tuesday, the conference room on the third floor smelled like new carpet and bad intentions. Harwell had spent $35,000 renovating that floor 6 months ago. New chairs, frosted glass panels, a projector system nobody could operate without the IT guy standing in the corner. Bryce Harland had learned to use it. He used it at every opportunity. Bryce was 31, son of Lorraine Harland, our board chair. He had an MBA from Northwestern, 11 months of McKinsey Consulting, and a title he had invented for himself one morning and put on a slide deck: Chief Operations Architect. The board never voted on it. Legal never reviewed it. Lorraine created the position by executive memo, installed her son into it, and overrode the 3 directors who objected. That's how it worked in the Harland family. You decided what you were and then you acted accordingly. He stood at the front of that room, clicking through slides. Words like lean operational footprint, talent reallocation, energy rebalancing toward growth vectors. I had sat through enough of these presentations to know the pattern. Every third buzzword was cover for something someone didn't want to say out loud. That something was me. Jerry, he said, still looking at his laptop screen, we're repositioning your role. Effective today, you're transitioning from VP of Operations to floor supervisor, compensation adjusted to reflect scope. Down from $295,000 DOs to $177,000 annually. 40%, read off a screen like he was reciting a weather forecast. He adjusted his collar. His hands were smooth and pale. Those hands had never touched Harwell machinery. They'd never touched any machinery. I've been working production floors since before he had a driver's license. And I can tell you with certainty that a man who's never stood next to a running alloy furnace at 2 a.m. and diagnosed a pressure variance by sound alone has no business restructuring anything. I said 2 words, I understand. He looked up for a second, then back down. He took my calm for surrender. People always do. Let me explain how a man ends up owning 54% of a $1.6 billion company without anyone on the board noticing. It starts with patience, and it starts with a conversation I had 25 years ago with the man who built this place. Marvin Stout founded Harwell Precision Alloys in 1971. When I arrived in 1997, he was still walking the production floor every Thursday morning. Not a tour for visitors. A real walk, stopping at workstations, asking specific questions, listening to the answers without interrupting. He stopped at my bench in my second year and watched me redesign a coating adhesion test sequence that had been wasting 11% of batch output. He stood there for almost 2 minutes without a word. Then he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a company pen, silver, engraved with the Harwell logo, and handed it to me. You've got equity here, he said. Not on paper yet, but you do. Don't let that go to waste. Marvin died 13 years ago. I kept the pen, and I did exactly what he told me to. Year 2 at Harwell, I enrolled in the employee stock purchase plan, 15% discount on shares tied to performance bonuses. Most of the guys took the cash. New truck, vacation, pay down the credit card. Every quarter, I took the stock, half a point here, a full point there. It's not exciting. It's not the kind of thing you talk about at dinner. You just do it, year after year, and you don't look at the total too often because the total isn't the point. The habit is the point. Then came the private purchases. 2 senior executives retired over a span of 17 years. First was Don Whitfield, VP of Procurement, who wanted liquidity for a property in Florida. I bought his block at a negotiated price, documented every dollar, filed the paperwork on time. Then Ed Gallagher, outgoing CFO, who wanted a clean exit from everything. Same process, same documentation. Every transfer submitted to the SEC on schedule under the name of the Lawson Holdings Trust. The trust was Walter Pruitt's idea. Walter and I have been friends for 25 years. We met through a mutual contact when we were both taking night classes at Columbus State. Him working toward a law degree. Me finishing up a business certificate I never ended up needing. Walter went into corporate securities law. He's 59 now, based in Columbus, and he is the only person alive who knows the full size of my ownership position. Walter built the Lawson Holdings Trust 25 years ago in my second year at Harwell. He filed every form, tracked every acquisition, submitted every SEC Form 4 and Schedule 13D when my beneficial ownership crossed 5%, then 10%, then 25%, then 54%, all of it public record, all of it sitting in the IDGAR database, all of it completely invisible to anyone on the Harwell board who never thought to look. The last time anyone on that board reviewed the full ownership filings was 2014. Walter also made sure I understood Article 7 of the Harwell Corporate Charter. He read it to me over bad diner coffee in Columbus about 8 years ago, the two of us in a corner booth at a place that hadn't updated its menu since 1994. He read it slowly, the way he reads anything that matters. The language is specific. If any officer of the corporation takes unilateral action affecting the compensation, title, or duties of any employee holding a majority stake in the company's issued shares without prior written consent of that shareholder may invoke Article 7 to force an emergency board session within 36 hours. I own 54% of Harwell Precision Alloys. Market value approximately $864 million. And Bryce Harland, 31 years old, self-appointed title, never ratified by a board vote, had just cut my salary by 40% without asking me, without asking the board, and without asking his mother's own general counsel. I didn't say a word on the way out, didn't slam doors, didn't stop to talk to anyone. I took the elevator to the lobby, nodded at Hank Delaney at the security desk, walked through the front entrance and across the main lot to my truck. Not the executive garage, the main lot, where I've parked for 27 years. I sat in the cab for about 2 minutes, thought about Otto waiting at home. He's my beagle, 10 years old, mostly gray around the muzzle. He's been with me since Carol died, and he has a way of reading a room that most people can't manage. Then I called Walter Pruitt. He picked up on the second ring, didn't say hello. Been waiting for this call for about 6 years, he said. I told him everything, word for word. The slides, the buzzwords, the title nobody voted on. The 40% salary cut delivered off a laptop screen, while Bryce kept glancing down at it like he needed prompts for his own authority. And Diane Colwell, HR director, Lorraine's niece, who had already signed the compensation reduction paperwork before the meeting happened. I found out during the meeting itself, got the notification on my phone from the HR portal while Bryce was still talking. Walter went quiet for a few seconds. I could hear him writing. His title was never ratified by full board resolution. I've read every board resolution for 11 years. There's no vote on record, and Diane signed the compensation documents independently before the meeting. Already processed. I got the system notification at 2:47 p.m. The meeting started at 3:20. Another pause, more writing. Then Article 7 is live, he said. I'll have the filing ready by 6:30. It was 4:52 p.m. on a Tuesday. I drove home, fed Otto, stood on the back porch for a while watching the Harwell smokestacks against the sky. I bought this house 19 years ago partly because you can see those stacks from the yard. Carol thought that was the strangest reason she'd ever heard for choosing a house. You want to stare at work from your own porch? She said. I told her I wanted to see what I was building. She laughed and signed the mortgage papers anyway. Carol died 8 years ago. Ovarian cancer, 14 months from diagnosis to the end. She was a high school chemistry teacher, the kind who remembered every student's name from every year, and they remembered hers. The church was standing room only at the service. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, good stuff, a bottle she gave me the Christmas before she got sick, the one I'd been saving without quite knowing what for. Sat on the porch, watched the lights in the Harwell executive suite. 3rd floor, corner office, my old office, the lights were on. At 6:31, Walter texted 2 words, filed. Clock running. I finished the bourbon, washed the glass, went to bed, slept 7 hours straight. First solid sleep in months. Here's what happened while I slept. Walter's Article 7 filing landed in the corporate secretary's inbox at 6:33 p.m. Gloria Tanner, 57. Been in that role 15 years, the kind of person who reads every document twice before she does anything with it, opened it at 7:20 while finishing dinner at her desk. She read the first paragraph. Then she read it again. Then she picked up her phone and called Cliff Oakes, Harwell's general counsel. Cliff didn't answer. He was at dinner with his wife. Gloria left a voicemail. Cliff, we received an Article 7 filing tonight. Emergency shareholder action. You need to call me back tonight. Cliff listened to it at 9:45. He called Gloria back immediately. Who filed it? An entity called the Lawson Holdings Trust. The filing claims beneficial ownership of 54% of issued shares. Cliff Oakes had been general counsel for 9 years. He was 62, careful, and he had been quietly uncomfortable with everything Bryce had done since arriving. He hadn't been consulted before the demotion. Nobody in legal had. Bryce had walked into that conference room with a slide deck and a title he'd invented and restructured the compensation of a 27-year company officer without a single legal review. Cliff sat down at his home office desk at 10 p.m. He opened the SEC's IDGAR database and typed in Harwell Precision Alloys. The filings loaded. He started with the most recent Schedule 13D amendment. Beneficial owner, Lawson Holdings Trust. Percentage of class, 54.0%. He scrolled back. There were years of filings behind it. Form 4 documenting quarterly share purchases. Transfer records from Whitfield and Gallagher. Every threshold crossing properly reported. 25 years of continuous meticulous documentation. He printed all 38 pages. He told me later his hand started shaking around page 9. By page 22, he'd loosened his tie. By page 31, he'd poured himself something he doesn't normally drink on weeknights. By page 38, he was sitting completely still, staring at the wall across his desk. The filing was immaculate. Walter doesn't make mistakes. He builds paper trails the way serious people build anything. One solid layer at a time, each one load-bearing, nothing left to chance. Cliff picked up his phone. It was 11:08 p.m. He did not call Bryce. He called Lorraine Harland. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was composed the way it always was, controlled, measured. The voice of a woman who had chaired that board for 11 years and was used to being the one with the information. Lorraine, I need you at headquarters first thing tomorrow morning. Your son took an action tonight that he had no legal authority to take. Silence. What are you talking about? Gerald Lawson owns 54% of this company. Has for years. It's documented in continuous SEC filings going back 25 years. Your son demoted the majority shareholder without board authorization, without legal review, and without the prior written consent required under Article 7 of our own charter. 5 full seconds. That's not possible. He's a VP. He's the majority owner of this company. Lorraine. He owns more of Harwell than every board member combined, including you. And there's something else you need to know tonight. He told her about Diane, the compensation documents signed before the meeting, processed through the HR system at 2:47 p.m., 13 minutes before Bryce even opened his mouth in that conference room. Diane had executed a unilateral compensation reduction against the majority shareholder without legal sign-off, without board authorization, and apparently without telling anyone she was doing it. When Lorraine spoke again, her voice was different. Something underneath the composure had shifted. Does Bryce know any of this? No, don't tell him tonight. I'll handle it. She didn't handle it. Because while Lorraine Harland was sitting in her house processing the fact that her son had walked into a boardroom and demoted the man who owned the majority of the company, Bryce was on LinkedIn. 10:54 p.m., a photo of his desk, my old desk, the corner office on the 3rd floor with a glass of sparkling water. Caption: Leadership means making the hard calls. Day 1 of the new era. First move made. It was screenshotted within the hour. It ended up in the filing appendix by morning. I woke up Wednesday at 5:30. Made black coffee. Fed auto. Stood on the back porch in the dark watching the smokestacks. My phone had 14 missed calls. 6 from Bryce. 3 from Lorraine's office line. 2 from a number I traced later to Diane Colwell's desk. 2 from Cliff Oakes. 1 from Gloria Tanner. I returned none of them. Instead, I drove to the hardware store on Route 9 and bought a new gate latch that had been giving me trouble since September. Came home, fixed it. Took about 35 minutes. Then I took Otto for a walk around the block, same route we do every morning, same pace. He's not fast anymore, but he's steady. I respect that in a dog. Around noon, I drove to the diner on Route 9 vinyl booths. Same waitress who's been working that counter longer than I've been at Harwell, and I ordered a turkey club and 2 cups of coffee and sat by the window and ate lunch like a man with nowhere to be. My phone buzzed the whole time. I left it face down on the table. At 3:20 p.m., Walter called. I picked up on the first ring. Board's confirmed for tomorrow, 10 a.m., he said. All 9 directors notified and attending. Gloria got the formal notices out by 11 this morning with the full Article 7 filing attached. Every director has seen the ownership documentation. They've all seen the 38 pages, all 38 pages. And Cliff's office has formally requested an independent audit of all operational decisions made during Bryce's tenure. 11 months of decisions. Every vendor contract, every personnel action, every budget reallocation. I looked out the diner window at the parking lot. Otto was in the passenger seat of the truck watching a pigeon. They found something in the audit, I said. 3 vendor contracts executed outside authorization limits. Bryce signed them under his unratified title. Diane co-signed 2 of them. Her signature gave those contracts the appearance of HR authorization they didn't actually have. What's the read on the room? I asked. Cliff described it as controlled fury. The directors are not angry at you. They're angry that an unratified title was used to take action against the majority shareholder without a single person in legal being consulted. They're angry about the LinkedIn post, and 2 of the original 3 directors who objected to Bryce's appointment are still on the board. They haven't said a word publicly. They don't need to. I finished my coffee. The waitress refilled it without being asked. She's been doing that for years. I'll be there at 9:45, I said. I'll be there at 9:30. I want to be seated before anyone walks in. Thursday morning, I put on the gray suit Carol picked out for me 11 years ago. She said it made me look like I meant business. She was right. I adjusted the tie in the bathroom mirror, navy, simple knot, and put Marvin Stout's pen in my breast pocket. The engraving caught the light the way it always does. I drove to Harwell and parked in the main lot. Hank Delaney was at the security desk. He's been at that post for 17 years. He looked up when I walked through the door and did something he'd never done before. He stood up, didn't say anything extra. Just nodded once, the kind of nod that carries weight. Walter was already in the corridor outside conference room A. Navy suit, the same scuffed leather briefcase he's carried since law school. One brass clasp is slightly bent. Walter doesn't replace things that still work. We looked at each other. Ready? He asked. Been ready for 6 years. The room was full when we walked in. All 9 directors seated. Gloria Tanner behind Cliff with a legal pad and the look of a woman who hadn't slept. Cliff at the far side with a document stack thick enough to stop a door. Lorraine at the head of the table, hands flat on the surface, face composed, but something behind the composure was gone. At the far end of the table, directly opposite Lorraine, there was a nameplate, Lawson Holdings Trust, majority shareholder. I sat down, placed Marvin's pen on the table in front of me, folded my hands. The clock read 9:57. At 9:59, the door opened and Bryce Harland walked in, fresh haircut. Slim-cut navy suit, laptop under his arm. He walked in like a man who believed he was early to a meeting he was running. Then he saw the nameplates. He saw all 9 directors. He saw Cliff's stack. He saw Walter behind me. He saw me at the end of the table with his mother's nameplate at the opposite end. He looked at Lorraine. Mom, what is this? Lorraine didn't look at him. Sit down, Bryce. He didn't sit immediately. I wasn't notified of a full board session. If this is about the restructuring rollout, I have the Phase 2 deck ready. Sit down. Same tone. Final. He sat. Cliff stood, didn't clear his throat. Didn't shuffle papers. Just stood, and the room went quiet the way rooms go quiet when everyone already knows what's coming except one person. This emergency session has been convened pursuant to Article 7 of the Harwell Precision Alloys Corporate Charter. The filing was submitted Tuesday at 6:33 p.m. by the Lawson Holdings Trust on behalf of its sole beneficiary, Gerald Lawson. The filing asserts that an officer of this corporation took unilateral action affecting the compensation, title, and duties of an employee holding a majority stake in the company's issued shares without prior written consent of that shareholder. Bryce opened his laptop. Close it, Lorraine said. He closed it slowly. The Lawson Holdings Trust holds 54% of Harwell Precision Alloys issued shares. This position has been documented in continuous SEC filings for 25 years. Every acquisition properly reported. Every threshold crossing filed on schedule. At current valuation, Mr. Lawson's stake represents approximately $864 million, and Sandra Merritt leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly through her nose. The director beside her closed his eyes for a moment. Bryce looked at me across the length of that table. For the first time since I'd known him, he wasn't performing. Those filings, there has to be a discrepancy. They're immaculate, Walter said from behind me. Calm and level, 25 years of continuous documentation. I built the structure myself. Bryce looked at his mother. She was staring at the table. Additionally, Cliff said, the title of Chief Operations Architect was never ratified by full board resolution. Created by executive memo, no formal vote. 3 directors objected and were overridden. Mr. Harlan's authority to restructure the compensation of any officer of this corporation is legally unsupported, independent of the ownership issue entirely. He paused just long enough for the room to register there was more. The independent audit has also identified 3 vendor contracts executed during Mr. Harlan's tenure that exceed the authorization limits of his unratified title. 2 bear a co-signature from Diane Colwell as HR Director. Ms. Colwell submitted her resignation this morning. Cliff looked around the table. A motion is before the board to reverse all restructuring actions taken by Bryce Harlan under the unratified title of Chief Operations Architect and to remove Mr. Harlan from his position effective immediately. The motion has been submitted by the majority shareholder. I'll call the vote. He went around the table. Director by director, each one stated their vote out loud. Director Merritt, aye. Director Osgood, aye. Director Finch, aye. Director Gallagher, aye. Director Prudhomme, aye. Director Weston, aye. Director Adler, aye. Director Hartley, aye. Cliff paused, looked at Lorraine. She lifted her head, looked at her son for a long moment. Bryce was staring back at her with an expression I recognized, the look of a man who just realized the floor under him wasn't solid. Aye, Lorraine said. 9-0. Unanimous. The room held that silence for about 4 seconds. Then Cliff spoke. The motion carries. Mr. Harlan, your position is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect personal belongings. Access credentials revoked within the hour. Bryce stood up. His chair rolled back and hit the credenza. He looked at me across that table, the full length of it between us. Tuesday, he said. You sat right there and said 2 words. I understand. That's all you said. I looked at him. I did understand, better than you. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The door opened. Hank Delaney walked in with another officer. Hank's face was professionally blank, but I've known him 17 years and I caught the corner of his mouth, just barely. Bryce looked at Lorraine one more time. She was staring at the table. He picked up his laptop and walked out. The frosted glass doors closed with a quiet click. The board session ran another 2 hours. Here's what matters. The board voted unanimously to appoint me interim CEO effective immediately. Formal appointment to follow within 30 days. My compensation was restored to $295,000 and restructured upward to reflect the CEO role. Within 30 days, the board approved a $42 million special dividend. My 54% stake entitled me to $22,007 million. Deposited into the Lawson Holdings Trust on a Tuesday, exactly 4 weeks after I'd been told I was being repositioned for operational efficiency. Minority shareholders filed a $58 million lawsuit against Bryce Harlan personally, alleging unauthorized actions that exposed the company to material governance liability. Last I heard, his attorneys were still negotiating. It wasn't going well for them. Lorraine resigned from the board 2 weeks after the vote. No statement, no company-wide email. She signed the letter, handed it to Gloria, and walked out of the building. Her ownership stake remains, but she won't sit at that table again. Bryce's LinkedIn post, the sparkling water on my old desk, leadership means making the hard calls, day 1 of the new era, first move made, is still in the filing appendix. Screenshotted, time-stamped, entered into the legal record. His first move was his last. Beverly Granger was promoted to Director of Operations. Bev had been running that floor better than anyone for 18 years. First official act I took with the new title. She stood in my office doorway when I told her and said about time. I told her she was right. I also announced the reinstatement of every employee Bryce had terminated during his 11 months. Every single one, in writing, on company letterhead. Because it was right, and because I finally had the authority to make it official, I kept the corner office. Put Carol's photo on the desk, same one from the truck's sun visor. Put put Marvin's pen in the top drawer. The nameplate on the door says CEO, but that's not the one that matters. The one that matters is the small brass plate on the desk. It just says Lawson. That Sunday Owen called right on schedule. The way he does every week, he's reliable that way. Gets it from his mother. Dad, he said, Bev texted me. She said you're the CEO. She said you've owned the company for 27 years and nobody knew. 54% of it, and people knew it was all public record. Nobody looked. He was quiet for a second. You actually owned the whole place this whole time and just kept showing up every day. I was on the back porch. Otto pressed against my ankle, chin on his paws. The Harwell smokestacks lit against the evening sky. Same view I've had from this porch for 19 years. Every day, I said. He laughed. Then I laughed. It was a good sound. After we hung up, I sat with Otto and the bourbon Carol's bottle, still a few evenings left in it, and watched the lights on the third floor. Corner office. My lights now, Bryce Harlan told a boardroom I needed to be repositioned for operational efficiency. He was 31 with a title nobody voted on, and he'd never once stood on a production floor at 2 a.m. and known by the sound alone that something in the furnace was off by 0.2%. I've known that sound for 27 years. He just didn't know I also owned the building. If you've spent decades doing the actual work while someone younger with the right last name walked in and told you what you were worth, you already know everything this story is about. The title doesn't make the man. The work does. The patience does. 25 years of showing up and building something real, quarter by quarter when nobody was watching. If that landed with you, hit that like button and subscribe. There are more stories like this one, and the people who need to hear them know exactly who they are.